Welcome to the Travel Tracker training for Transportation Administrators. Transportation Administrators have the highest authority in the Travel Tracker application. They are responsible for setting up and maintaining the configuration options and the tables. They can do any approvals, any assignments, and override any bus assignments throughout the entire process. This will ensure that trips and assignments can be made even if someone in the approval process is out of the office and an emergency approval is needed. What is the Travel Tracker? The Travel Tracker is an automated, web-based system for processing your district's field trips, athletic trips, and possibly staff trips. Since it's web-based, you can access it on any device, anywhere, that has internet and a browser. The process begins when a teacher, coach, or other user submits a trip request. The system will send an email to the first approver of the trip that has a link to the request. The approver can click the link to open the request, or the approver can delete the email and go to the Travel Tracker and open the request from their Trip Approval tab. Each approver in the approval flow will be notified when it is their turn to approve the request. There can be up to 10 levels of approval, including board approval for overnight or out-of-state trips, and unlimited funding approvers. Once the request is fully approved, the vehicle and driver can be assigned by transportation or a vehicle owner at a bus location. Child nutrition can be notified of trips that are going to be away during lunch and perhaps need packed lunches. School nurses can be notified of trips on which students with health concerns are traveling. School bookkeepers can be notified of trips that the teacher has requested a third-party check to pay for the venue cost. The Travel Tracker fully encompasses the invoicing of trips, from the creation of the invoice through the payment by the school and processing of the payment by finance or transportation. The system also provides extraordinary reports from an Excel export. The Travel Tracker is very flexible and customizable, so your process may be somewhat different from this example. Being familiar with some terminology used in the Travel Tracker will be helpful. The trip request. The trip request is the initial trip request that is submitted by the end user. The user will determine the type of trip, field trip, athletic trip, staff trip, the requesting location, and the type of funding, the type of vehicles, and other requirements of the trip. The assignment and invoice. Once a vehicle and/or driver have been assigned to a trip, we call this an assignment. The assignment is also the beginning of the invoice, and the term assignment and invoice are interchangeable in the Travel Tracker. There can be multiple assignments and invoices for a trip. For example, if a trip needs 3 vehicles, there will be 3 assignments and 3 invoices for this trip. This is because there will be different drivers, vehicles, and potentially different mileage and rates for the 3 assigned buses and drivers for this trip. The trip number will be listed on each assignment, so it's easy to locate the multiple assignments and invoices for each trip. The requesting location. The requesting location is the location of the user who requests the trip. The user selects their requesting location when they submit a trip request. The requesting location is used to determine who will assign the vehicles for this trip, who will approve the trip for some of the approval levels, and possibly which funding sources or budget codes from which the trip will be paid. It will also determine the default location for selecting the buses to assign. The vehicle owner. The vehicle owner is the terminology we use to designate the person responsible for scheduling the vehicle and or driver for a trip. A transportation admin could be the only vehicle owner who assigns all the vehicles in the district. Or there may be vehicle owners at the schools who are responsible for assigning the vehicles located at those schools. Transportation admin have full authority in the travel tracker and can assign any vehicle and driver, no matter who the designated owner is. Types of trips. There are 4 trip types in the travel tracker: field trip, athletic trip, staff trip, and special needs. There can be a unique flow of approval for each trip type at each location. Your district may not offer all these options. For example, your district may not use the travel tracker to manage staff travel. Unless your district has an owner who only assigns special needs vehicles, you may not use the special needs trip type. Many districts use the term activity trip. If your activity trips have the same approval flow as athletic trips, you may need to include activities like ROTC, band as athletic events. Let's take a look at the travel tracker. The tabs across the top of the travel tracker are used to categorize functions based on the various roles of the users in the travel tracker. There are many different roles in the travel tracker application. Each role has different responsibilities and different authority in the system. The transportation administrator has full access to assign individuals to the various roles using the Configuration tab and the Setup Tables tab. In many cases, there are multiple ways for transportation admin to get to the same functions because they see all the tabs. Some of the tabs are designed for specific users. For example, the Trip Approval tab is mainly for users who are designated as an approver at some level. Approvers may also need to see assignments and schedules for their trips, so duplicate menu items are included on this tab for this reason. Be assured, though, that when a trip approver signs on, their menu options are limited to only what they need in order to make the system easy for them to use. Let me describe some of the various tabs in the travel tracker. The Main tab. The Main tab is available to all users and is where users will submit a new trip request and see their own trip requests. This tab is designed specifically for end users, those trip requesters, and the Main tab won't be used by transportation administrators for the most part unless they are submitting a trip request. Let's look at the options that are available on the Main tab. Menu options that you may see on the Main tab include Submit a Request, where the trip request is submitted. Your Trip Request. This is where that requester sees the trip request that they have submitted. Your Trip Request with Number. This is going to allow the trip requester to search for their trip request by the trip number. Your Assignments. This will be a view of any trips that have a current assignment. Vehicle Mileage Not Entered. This option allows the requester to submit the mileage for a trip. The Configuration tab provides settings that control many of the system options, such as the number of lead days and chaperone rules, and many other options. We will talk more about the Configuration tab later in the training. The Configuration tab is only available to administrators who are designated to be able to update the configuration and setup tables. The Setup Tables tab in the travel tracker is used to define such items as vehicles and locations and travel destinations and many other options. This is also the area that you will need to work with to update who approves trips and assigns vehicles. The AppGuard implementation team will assist you in setting up your tables initially, but you will be able to make updates to them and have the authority to make changes in the setup tables. We'll talk more about the setup tables later in the training. The Setup Tables tab is only available to administrators who are designated to be able to update the configuration and setup tables. The Trip Approval tab is used mainly by trip approvers to provide trips waiting on their approval, as well as trip and assignment information for trips originating from their locations. This tab is available to administrators and all trip approvers. Some of the options that you may see on the Trip Approval tab are trips waiting on my approval, trips waiting on additional approval, a list of trip emails that have been sent from the trip request form, the trip inquiry, and schedule information, as well as the assignment inquiry. You will learn more about all of these options in other lessons in the training course. The Vehicle Owners tab is used by transportation administrators and other vehicle owners that are designated to assign vehicles from their own locations. The Vehicle Owners tab is useful to view any trip requests that are pending an assignment. Some of the options you see here are pending vehicles and pending drivers, all trips, trip inquiry, trips used by trip number, recurring trips, recurring assignments, and many other options. Many of these options we will explain later in other lessons in the course. The Trip Request tab is available only to transportation admins and provides visibility into all trip requests district-wide from a variety of menu selections. This is a global view tab. There are many options under the Trip Request tab, and most of those options will be discussed in other lessons in the course. The Assignments tab is also available only to transportation administrators. It is also a global tab. It provides district-wide visibility into all of the vehicle and driver assignments through a variety of menu options. Many of these menu options we will discuss in further lessons in the course. The School Finance tab is the view that the school secretary or bookkeeper sees. Pending payment options will list out all the invoices that have been approved for payment. This tab is visible to administrators, finance users, and users who are designated to pay invoices at a site at the location table. There are lessons in this course that explain the school finance process. The Funding Management tab is the view that the person who is responsible for paying invoices for a particular funding source will see. The pending payment options will list out all invoices that have been approved for payment. Only users that are designated as a funding approver and transportation administrators will see the Funding Management tab. This tab is similar to School Finance in that they will see invoices that they are responsible for, but only to pay for trips from their particular funding source. The Finance Department tab is the view that the person who is responsible for posting payments will see. This is typically someone in finance if they are involved in the travel tracker and handle the receiving and posting of payments. The finance role normally is to receive payments from the bookkeepers and to mark in travel tracker that these payments have been received. The pending payment by location option will list out all invoices where the payment has been sent and is waiting to be posted by finance. The Finance Department tab is visible to transportation administrators and the person responsible for posting payments. The Invoices tab provides visibility into all invoices district-wide from a variety of menu selections, as you can see. Transportation administrators and finance users can see this tab. School secretaries see the tab, but they only see non-Yellow Bus invoices and Yellow Bus invoices menu items on the Invoice tab, and can only see those for the schools that they are designated to see. Special invoices such as mileage adjustment and vehicle maintenance can be created and displayed here. The Calendar tab contains a view of all three available calendars in the travel tracker. However, the Calendar tab can be turned off for certain users, and the different options of calendars can be available only to certain users. Transportation administrators can determine which groups see the Calendar tab and then which groups see certain calendars within the Calendar tab. There will be more training on the calendars in a later lesson. The Reports tab provides the capability to export information from the travel tracker into Excel. The Assignment Trips Reports provides an export for all trip requests and vehicle and driver assignments. For administrators, all information can be exported. For approvers, site administrators, owners, this export can only be used and will only show information for their assigned sites. There will be more training and other lessons on the export later in the course. The Support Services tab is the view that child nutrition and school nurses will see. For child nutrition, this allows them to easily see how many students will be away during lunch or how many packed lunches need to be provided. For the school nurses, this allows them to see trips with students with health concerns. The Driver tab is only available with the Elite version of the Travel Tracker. The Driver tab allows drivers to bid electronically on trips and for transportation administrators to assign drivers to trips based on the bid. There will be more training on driver bidding in another lesson in the course. Now that we have been introduced to the Travel Tracker, to the flow, to the terminology, and the description of the tabs, let's talk about, as a transportation administrator, what should you do on a daily basis to manage the trips in your travel tracker? As a transportation administrator, you can easily spot potential problems by viewing the Needs Attention views that are in the Trip Request and the Assignments tab. We recommend that you check both of these tabs every morning to spot trips that are scheduled within 5 days and have not been approved, or that are scheduled in 5 days and have not yet had a vehicle or a driver assigned. So every morning when you come into the travel tracker, click on the Trip Request tab. It's going to default to the first option here on the left, Needs Attention 5 days. What you will see in this view is any trip request in the system that are scheduled to go 5 days or less and have not been completely approved. And so when you see trips that are out there and need approval, you have a couple of options. The first option, of course, would be to open the trip request, review it, and approve it. You can approve for anyone in the system. You have full authority. However, you may want to notify the approver that they need to approve that trip so that you can assign a vehicle or a driver to that trip. So decide what you need to do. Do you want to approve it, or do you need to contact the approver, the designated approver, to approve the trip? The most important thing is to take action, because this trip needs to be approved before you can assign a vehicle and a driver to it. The other Needs Attention view is in the Assignments tab. When you click on the Assignments tab, it defaults to Needs Vehicles Assigned, because these are approved trips and are going out in 5 days or less and have not had the vehicle and or the driver assigned. So you can work from this list and make the assignments yourself if that is the way your district is doing business, or you can notify the owner of the trip and make sure that they get the assignment made on these approved trips. You also have the option over on the left of Need Drivers Assigned. This is another view so that you can see any trips that are going out in 5 days or less. Maybe they have the vehicle assigned, but they don't have the driver assigned yet. And so you can also work from this view. The most important thing again is that these need attention because they are going out in 5 days or less and have not had the assignment made. You will find more detailed lessons on the Trip Request tab and on the Assignments tab later on in the course that will give you information about how to approve and how to make the assignments. After you have checked your trip request tab and your assignments tab for any trips that are needing your attention, your working tab in transportation, if you are making assignments of vehicles and drivers, is the vehicle owners tab. This is the working tab where you will find all of the trip requests that are approved and need vehicles assigned, no matter how far out in the future they are. You would work from this tab to make your assignments. Now again, there is lessons later on in the course that go into the details of how to make assignments and the different options for that. So be sure that you look for those lessons and learn how to make the assignments of the vehicles and the drivers. Once the assignments have been made, you will print out trip tickets that you will give to the drivers with the information about the trips and send them on their way. Once the trip tickets are returned to you after the trips have occurred, then you will learn how to enter that information from the trip ticket into the invoices. Once the invoices are paid, you will learn how to manage those invoices and reconcile those payments into the travel tracker if you choose to do that. So in managing your travel tracker, other than keeping on top of the trip requests that have not been approved and the assignments that have not been made, taking care of those, making assignments, printing trip tickets, and working in the invoices, the other two tabs that you will be working in primarily are the configuration and the setup tables tab. There are many lessons in the course that will train you on the different options in the configuration tab and the different options in your setup tables. The other tabs that are in your system are good for information, but are really utilized by other users in the system. The lessons that follow in this training course are going to teach you about the many different features and options in the travel tracker. Many of these options and features you will be using in the travel tracker. Some of them you may not be. You will want to speak with someone in your transportation office about how you're using the travel tracker and what features you will be using, and learn then those lessons. One of the first lessons that you're going to have is the lessons on how to register for the travel tracker. If your district is self-registering, you will need to watch this video on registration to learn how to register for the travel tracker so that you can get in and use the system. If your district is not doing self-registration, but you are using Active Directory, which means you're using your network login credentials to log into the travel tracker, find someone in your department in IT what that information would look like for you and how you'll log into the travel tracker. So enjoy the exploring your lessons and learning about the travel tracker, and enjoy the many different facets of the travel tracker, and enjoy how much it's going to improve the efficiency of managing your field trips and your athletic trips.